Very well. And Verstat will be about to sign it when he asks one more question. Um, and about the putting down the rebel civilians in the village near us. What was that about?
He steeples his fingers and he says, "Although I would prefer you not to kill them should such a situation arise, which it may, though I doubt it. They have been happy to work and are making quite a bit of a fortune off of us, especially the village elders for all their complaining. I would not... I don't really care how you deal with them. Hagerdorf isn't really that important. It just was here."
Very well. And Verstat will sign the thing.
Before you sign, he
Yep.
does raise a finger and he says, "I should note there is a clause that you should have your attention drawn to, lest I be accused of being some sort of malign influence." And he points down to the last line that appears on all of your scripts, or all of your contracts. And he reads it out as it appears on the page, and it specifically says that if you sign this contract, you are binding your very essence to not raise your hand against Lord Otto Silverhand.
Have I heard of this sort of shtick before?
No, this is super bizarre. Like, you've heard of someone being like, "Hey, you need to pledge your life" as like part of a thing, but you've never seen it in writing, and you've never seen it in magic writing.
What about me? Have I ever heard about this sort of thing?
You have, but once again, it's very unusual, and
Okay.
it's kind of odd. Might be something worth arguing. You could just sign it if you
No.
want.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
why would this be in here? What possible outcomes would have us raising our hands against you?
He turns in his chair to look at the wood elf, and he goes, "Do you know Braun Oaksplitter?"
No.
He nods and says, "Braun is the leader of the Kvinteg clan outside. Well, he's not their Thane, but he's in charge of the operations here. Do you know how he got the name Oaksplitter?"
Probably split smoke.
"Not just Snoke. When we were in Bretonia, we were there for an unfortunate spring. It was bizarre. It was like the forest itself came alive and came rampaging towards all of us. It was a pretty horrifying experience."
I will smile.
He nods and says, "It could have been, it was a dangerous affair. We lost some good men that day, but Braun earned a name for himself when he struck down this colossal walking tree creature. You would be amazed how much I sold its body for to the Lords of Bretonia. They paid quite nicely to do some experiments on its corpse."
Oh God.
Yeah, unless you say otherwise, there's gonna be like electricity starting to coil.
That's fine. You feel your anger rising, and he leans forward and points at you, and he says, "Maybe now you understand why I'm a little bit skeptical of people who come to work here. That's why there's a clause to make sure people who come here aren't assassins, and if they are, to at least make their lives difficult. I'm not going to say I've been a perfect man, even though I've been close, but there are people who are bound to have issues with my activities in the past, even in that sense when we were just defending ourselves, I might mind you. Nonetheless, I wish to stay alive, so I won't lie to you and say that it's a non-negotiable part of the contract, but you better be able to offer me something pretty serious in return. I do value my safety, after all."
Verstat will say, well, he'll pull out one of the silver shillings he was given, tap it on the table, and say, "As long as these keep coming, I'll sign this piece of paper." And he goes to sign it.
He nods at Verstat.
So you said coin for our job, per job. Is there a ballpark figure? Like, what are we signing up for? Because you could be saying Oh, you could be saying per job right now, and that per job is what, 5 brass?
He holds up a finger and he says, "Jobs for me, I guarantee you'll always be paid in silver. However, I should note there are better ways to earn more or less money if you're just eager to fill out your pockets or want to spend faster than you earn. You can always take on jobs from the dwarves if you're interested, or from the captain. They tend to pay not quite as well unless it's a particularly important task. That being said, I will always make sure you're fairly compensated. I may be many things, but a ripoff for people who work personally for me is not one of them. And if you want, you can roll an intuition check to see if he's lying.
So, like, one of us rolls it, right?
Well, any of you that want to try and figure it out can roll it.
Okay.
Drac, you believe him 100%. Even those of you who have passed, he seems very sincere about that last statement.
Okay. Verstappen will say, "My statement stands," and he will sign the piece of paper.
All right. As soon as you sign it, it rolls itself up and rolls back off the table, and the silver statue behind him suddenly lurches forward and collects it and holds it. And it's rather alarming to the four of you that this 6.5-foot statue that seems purely made out of silver just moved.
As a graduate of the College of Magic, can I try and act like I've seen this before?
You could try, but you definitely haven't.
Yep.
You've seen similar things, but not quite that.
Yep.
Now, would this be an average cool test, or difficult, or challenging?
For everyone who is not magically inclined, it will be it'll be -10. For everyone who is magically inclined, it'll be -0.
What is this for?
Cool check.
Ah, very fancy. Bet you could make a mint entertaining kids. Probably not worth it, though, with the money you're rolling.
What'd you say if you're magically inclined? +10?
Plus nothing.
Gotcha.
No, everybody's cool. Verve, it's not that impressive. You -0, you don't really care. Okay, so he nods to Vertstad as your scroll is collected by the construct, and then he leans forward on his elbows towards the other three, and he says, "And what about you three?"
Ah, well, Drax. Was there a time period in there, or an exit clause?
I don't know, was there?
He raises his hand and says, "You can terminate the contract legally at any time so long as you discuss it with me. So if you're out in the forest, please don't just terminate your contract and run. It gets complicated, at least send a message. That being said, you're not going to drop dead or anything if you decide to leave."
Must admit, I've heard too many tales of the activities of shaman that this last clause makes me think of.
Dwarf,
Not accusing you of anything, just the similarity unnerves me.
he strokes his silver-haired beard and says, "Dwarf, I would be surprised to get you to sign it. But you're a dwarf, so I will take your word, but you must swear an oath that you will not raise your hand against me."
Yes, Drac will give his word.
All right, he snaps his fingers, and the scroll the scroll rolls up and rolls its way to the golem that collects it.
Sotek, when I did my gossip about the food and lodging and stuff, did I get an idea that the prices of stuff at the camp is not exorbitantly expensive?
Yeah, it seems fair. It seems like normal.
Alright, just wanted to check that it wasn't you get 1 silver and you can buy stuff here. Food's 3 silver.
Yeah, he's not running that shit America did in like the when they were building the railroads.
That is Drac's oath.
All right, his eyes switch from the halfling to the wood elf.
I'm I'm looking at him, and then I'm looking around at all of this.
He does pause for a moment looking at you, Verve, and he says, how about I throw in a little something extra? Because I'll admit, Lady Verve, your talents could be incredibly useful for what I do here. So how about I make you a deal? And as he's talking, the contract seems to extend itself magically and gets more writing. He says, not only will I swear my word, magical word, that if you find a tree you deem important, we won't chop it down. But so long as you are performing admirably and don't sabotage my work and don't start fights, I will be willing to negotiate allowing you to use my library.
I will look at him, like, firmly straight in the eyes and say, that is your word.
He nods at the scroll and says, the laws to breaking it apply to me as they apply to you, and I do not intend to be crippled by my own magic.
Verstat looks super jelly.
I have one last question. The spell that binds me, what happens?
He will kind of smirk and lean back in his chair and say, it's a nifty little spell I designed that essentially, well, let's just say that I do like to gamble a little bit. It's how I've made some of my fortune. So should you decide to betray me, and when I say betray, I only mean in the sense that you try and harm my person or destroy my tower, then first of all, I will be immediately alerted to it. Second of all, and he turns to the construct behind him, he says, my guardians will become immediately aware of your location and thoughts and designs. And third of all, one of your limbs will randomly turn to inert silver. It won't kill you, but it will certainly make your life difficult.
Does, out of character, does head count as a limb?
No.
Okay.
He explicitly, in the contract explicitly says it cannot kill you.
Gotcha.
People tended not to sign when that part was in.
Yeah.
She will bite her lip and look at the contract, and sigh very heavily and move forward and say, I will sign.
He nods and says, and if it's any consolation, I will have you know that if you care at all for humans, then what Braun Oak Splitter did saved many, many lives that day.
It depends on the humans.
He shrugs and says, well, they're Bretonians, so take that with what you will. At that, he does raise a hand. He says, speaking of Bretonians, I should note, we do have a lad here in the camp. His name is Rimmon. He's a little, let's just say he's a boy with something to prove. So, just a warning: if you run into someone with a Bretonian accent, just try, please, not to pick a fight.
As I said,
Out of character.
I will not.
I will not answer any questions about the character until you do.
I will not pick a fight, but it is usually they who pick a fight with me.
My Lady Verve, I can assure you I know most things that go on in this camp. At least things that are noticeably loud. And if someone starts a fight with you, then you are in complete fairness to destroy them to the point that they are not dead.
To the point that they are not dead.
As long as they're still breathing, I will not hold you accountable. So long as it's in self-defense.
Lightning bolt away.
I will
That's an
sign.
ease off my mind.
He nods and says, although I will not claim it is painless, I have designed some spectacular engines when it comes to rectifying severe injuries.
Built an autodock from Fallout.
You have. I didn't want to say anything, but I'm a little injured from that encounter with the spiders we mentioned earlier.
He looks at you and says, if your bones are not broken, then it's not the kind of device I would suggest using. You would probably cause more harm than it fixes.
Ah, I will pass then. I see.
That being said, we do have some army surgeons in camp if you want to get patched up.
Thank you.
They do charge, though.
Good to know.
I'll be back in a second.
Verve, he nods as you sign your contract, and you notice that when you sign your contract, unlike Vertstat's, which came out a brilliant gold when he signed, yours comes out this like gorgeous emerald green, and he almost like giddily claps his hands as the contract rolls up and goes and swifts over to the golem. And then he turns his attention down upon you, Wrist.
I have to say, I'm not entirely pleased with the idea of being bound by magic that I don't know the kin of, but I think that in this case, provided one small teensy-weensy change, I am totally on board with this. Even if you make me spend all my time not cooking.
And that
Is,
change...
I would like to know, I just need to notify you in person when the contract I want to end, yes?
Not technically, I just need to be notified in a way that's obvious.
Okay, a way that's obvious. Good. A way that's obvious and isn't betrayal. Got it. Now, the question I have is, you said you don't mind, you are very protective of those working under you. How does that extend once the contract's over and I'm not working under you and you may be, say, peeved with me for leaving? I would like some form of delay before, say, retribution for not liking the halfling very much would happen.
He openly laughs at this request, and he goes, Master Halfling, I can assure you there have been attempts on my life from people who have worked in this camp, and I have neither the time nor patience to go trying tracking people down.
Ah, good. Oh, what happens if one of those attempts on your life works and we're all bound to your essence thingy?
Then the magic ends. You will be at no risk.
Alright, sounds great. Sticking out his tongue, he will take whatever quill is available, and very slowly and shakily write A, B, C, D, E, F, and then grin as he makes a little flourish at the end.
He watches with his eyes kind of grow narrower by the second, especially when, for some bizarre reason, every letter you write seems to come out a bizarre different flourish of color. And
he can't read or write.
He rolls his eyes.
Write me name. There it is, right there.
He rolls his eyes before gesturing to the contract, and it rolls to the construct. And he nods and says, I should note, Master Halfling, if you want to earn some side pay working in the kitchens, feel free to do that. You're not banned from them, though I will ask you to refrain from stealing from the kitchens if you feel the inclination. They are guarded by magical sentries, and I will know.
Oh, I'd never steal from the kitchens.
I'm sure neither you nor any of the other 5 halfling chefs we have here would, but it always seems to warrant saying.
So how did you do that trick with the coins in your hands?
he rolls his eyes and he says, I wouldn't exactly call it a trick, but it's something I can assure you you cannot replicate. In any event, Master Drac, you will need to report into the dwarves at this point, though you are contracted now, so I can assure you they will deal with you.
Nods.
I can't make any promises about their temperament, but you can at least meet them.
Drac nods and begins to leave.
And the last thing he says is, I would check in with Anders before the four of you do anything else. You can find him just up the path a little bit in camp. His tent is obvious.
We will check it out.
And with that, he reaches down and he puts his mask back on and kind of lets out a long sigh of relief, and the books before him start flipping pages.
Quick question. When Drax was reading my contract, he didn't find anything different in it, correct?
No.
Just checking, because I didn't pay him to check.
Yeah.
As we're leaving, I would say to Verve, lucky son of a bitch.
Well, you are really bad at haggling. You know how you got us kicked out of town.
I saw the money and, I just moved.
You're human.
And
You're
you said
impatient.
you don't gamble.
He didn't say that. He said he's bad at it.
No, he said he didn't believe in gambling. I'm pretty sure that was the exact words he used.
That's
Believe
what I
as in if
said.
it was some kind of deity.
He does sit
As
up
if
for
he
a
didn't
moment.
believe it wouldn't work.
A metallic voice calls after you, and he says, "That reminds me, do not bring up Rogenbach in camp. That is not a request."
Rishtat will nod.
I want to be like the one that kind of lingers.
Okay, you can linger.
Before he walks out, Wrist will turn and salute. Understood, undertaking the first mission. Do not talk about that deity that is not to be named. What duration is this mission for, sir?
He frowns up at you, and you get a queasy sense as you look at his eyes, and they seem to be constantly shifting for different metallic hues, and there's a very intense stare coming from beneath that mask. He doesn't say anything, though.
I want to make a cool check to maintain my innocent grin.
Go for it.
Oh yeah, you grin away.
Wait, I have to roll his intimidation. Because he's trying to get rid of the halfling, because he's tired of halflings. Let's see. 47.
And we call it after this.
Yes.
Doing
Yes.
it.
There's lots still to do, but this is a good stopping point.
Thank you.
Alright, hold on. Let me go down to his intimidation. So that's that. Oh, okay. So yeah, you actually you despite his aura of menacingness, you are not impressed. You hang on to your cool demeanor, and he sighs for a moment and covers his forehead before saying, "Forever, until you leave."
Understood. Won't talk about it in camp at all. Forever and ever and ever. You did say you pay all missions in silver, yes?
At this, he frowns, and you notice all of the 8 much larger golems that are probably in the ballpark of 10 feet tall, guarding the entrance. All of them move in that they all grab their swords and lift them up by about 2 inches.
But for such a minor mission, maybe a penny?
Drag grabs the halfling and just drags him out.
I almost had him. Could have gotten an extra penny.
After the halfling leaves, and one of the large doors booms shut, he does continue frowning, but he looks up at you, Verve, and he waits patiently.
The villagers that were here before you, are they afforded the same protection as everyone else?
Many of them not. They refuse to sign contracts. Some of them do. The younger ones will do work. But their council was... I'm not in the business of removing people. The village of Hagerdorf is still where it has always been, a little further down the road. I simply moved in close. the people there are very stubborn.
Stubborn enough to survive here in the wilds, withdrawn from the rest of the Empire, with all this maliciousness around them.
Indeed, they've been here a very long time, I can tell you that much.
My last question is, are you able to aid them when all the creatures you're stirring up with your chopping and defilement comes bearing down upon them?
If they'll accept it.
I will nod and head towards the door, and I will stop kind of right here, and I'll turn around and say, have there been any storms nearby?
He quizzically looks up and says, nearby? Not in a while, but the Hager Crypts are famous for the Mithril storms that'll come in. You'll get storms.
Where can I find information about these storms in the Hager Crypts?
He sort of leans back in his chair and shrugs and says, I wouldn't say anyone's been collecting information on them. Maybe the village elders might have some information if you're wanting to go down and deal with them. Though I should warn you, they don't take kindly to outsiders. Especially strange outsiders.
I will nod and say, is there a messenger I might use to get in contact with them?
He waves his hand nonchalantly as he looks back towards his books and says, certainly there's plenty of people in camp that visit the village. Many of the soldiers visit the local... And he pauses for a moment and catches himself and says, you'll find someone.
I will nod, turn around, and walk out the door.
Alright, and that's a good stopping place. We've been going for like hours.
Nice, guys.
Whew. Alright, I'm going to turn off the recording. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye, thanks. And I'm going to turn back on the recording for that.
I was about to say.
So yes, y'all can discuss and agree on a party long-term and short-term goal now.
So, the only thing I have like on this is like I don't know.
See, Drax's goal is to kind of, I don't know if it's really to map or something, but he basically wants to get like a knowledge of the Hager Crypts and what's the natural phenomenon there, because it's like, you know, he's a ranger, so he's trailblazing for the dwarves. Or more scouting it out. Does that fall in line with what Verif wants to do?
I would say...
Not really.
I would propose that a good short-term goal may be to successfully accomplish a given mission.
Okay.
That sounds reasonable.
For a long-term goal, that depends on what y'all's overall... Y'all might not be able to pick one out just yet. There's still a notable amount of characters to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll wait on the long-term one.
Well, I would...
Ben, you cut out.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me now? All right. I would suggest for now, because we can always change it once we've got a more defined idea of the camp, we could just say unravel a great mystery of the Hagen Crypt, whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah, that'll work.
Because it sounds like a lot of people have things involving that, and I know Rist would be more than happy to find some juicy, gossipy information about some ancient thing or some mystery that gets solved or we find out about.
Sure,
That
that's
sounds good.
That's a totally acceptable one if y'all want to run with that.
Yep.
Because it's vague enough that it could apply to any of the goals that, secret goals you guys have, but still is a group thing we could all do together and would want to do.
Yeah.
Great. All right, so long-term goal is to solve a/the mystery of the Hager Cribs, and short-term goal is to successfully accomplish your first mission. Cool. Once again, 200 experience to everybody. You did a great job.
You expecting us to save Hans?
It was optional.
Nice. We saved Hans. Also, you guys ratted Hans out the minute we got there. You fuckers.
I tried to shift the blame to the villagers.
I thought we talked about it being like goblins and stuff, but no.
No,
But what do you mean?
No, that was
No
the
one ever
fire.
said
That was the
anything
cause of
about
the
that to
fire.
me.
I said, you know what? To Hans, oh, we didn't light the fire. That was those crazy goblins lit their own place on fire. How stupid of them! And then we walk in, and Verve goes, "Yeah, see that big burning thing? We did that."
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
They
use
didn't write
that
out
for
Hans. They
our
went, "Hey,
benefit.
that thing is our fault. I'm the wood elf who lights forests on fire.
That
Watch.
is true.
I
We-
give no fucks."
We sold them out.
I was waiting the whole time for Silverhead to comment on the wood elf causing a forest fire.
I think he knows that the wood elf does not care for disgusting dead forest infested by giant spiders.
That is
Oh.
really
In fact, that fire is probably a blessing. It will renew
Yeah,
the forest.
It is, but it's still ironic.
Rogenbach is who we brought up, who we probably shouldn't have. But we'll see.
Ah, yes, the mysterious Rogenbach.
I mean, that could be our long-term goal. Figure out who the fuck Rogenbach is.
Yeah. I figured that's kind of the mystery of the Hager Crypt, though.
It could be. It's one of the great mysteries of the Hager Cribs.
Trust me, y'all are gonna
Sotek
learn.
made me like Rogenbach.
Y'all are gonna meet some doozies of mystery. There are a lot of mysteries. Y'all are gonna meet some doozies when you meet Anders.
Nice.
I'm kind of sad because like my one of like when Aztec and I were talking before the thing started and we were both commenting on how we wanted to do a wizard, I mentioned I wanted to be a metal wizard and I was like, ah damn, I could have been this weird ass dude's apprentice. That would have been hilarious.
Well, I wouldn't have allowed that, but you
Yeah,
could
okay.
you could have been an apprentice of somebody he knew.
Yeah.
That being said, it would have done you no favors. Otto is not the nicest guy.
I figured, but it would have been an amusing situation.
Well, when you got over 8 silver golems, you don't really need to be the nice guy.
Yeah, I would say when y'all get second sight, you might want to check in on Otto again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might learn some interesting things. Mostly just you probably should not try to fight this guy. It probably will not go well for you.
Yeah, I think like from the fact that you described him as being scarier than like any shaman that Drac has just fought just by being there, like Drac's like this dude's some serious shit.
Otto
I do have to say, those rolls, though, were incredible.
Oh my gosh.
The absurdity of my roles today, except I am an anime main character. In everything, I'm amazing. But the second some slapstick woman tries to slap me,
Yes.
I am demolished.
that is true.
Oh my gosh. Alright. Oh lord.